Hey, welcome to another webinar from Tarvent. Today is day after Veterans Day. So Memorial Day, shouldn't say Veterans Day, Memorial Day, but at least in the US. So Derek, nice to have you on.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? Another week doing the webinar.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good
So
one.
so I'm Jason, CEO and founder of Tarvent, and Derek, uh, jack of many trades. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess we'll kind of get into it this week. Last week was a pretty busy week as usual. So we got a lot of cool things. First thing, I guess, is Active Pieces is finally done from our side. So
Yep.
we're just, I guess, going through that approval process and getting that all going. Have you? I'm assuming you haven't heard anything yet, Derek.
Yeah. Last time I checked, they have it on their plan. So there's like a date range. It's like the 26th to June 2nd. So I don't know if that means that on June 2nd it's going to be released, but we're at least in their pipeline. So everything from our side is pushed to them. We're just waiting on them to do their internal approvals to get that released to everybody. But at least we're in their pipeline. I just don't know what that means from their side.
Yep, just kind of waiting to hear, but at
Yep.
least we're there. So, and with that, when you guys do see the Active Pieces go live, um, it's going to be kind of like Zapier and Make. We're going to have all the same features that we have there. We're going to have that in Active Pieces. So it is quite an extensive integration with their integration platform. So we've had a lot of requests for it. I think that's one of our top requests. So we'll see how well that gets adopted once that goes live, and hopefully we'll be reporting next week. I mean, if things go well, I think you said the 6th, but if maybe we can get it by Tuesday next week. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Once it is released, we'll be sure to send out an email to everybody and have an in-app in that what's new area. We'll be sure to post there as well. So once it's ready, you guys will definitely know. Hopefully it's before next Tuesday, like Jason said. But yeah, just keep an eye on your inbox. So
yeah. So hopefully my connection is better today, but and I've had a little bit of issues with my connection. So hopefully it's going to go well today. But other things we did, and we're continuing to do some contact events. So the activities. So when you go into a contact and you look at their activities, we made some pretty significant performance enhancements there. So that is running just about instant at this point. So we're still working on a couple performance things that we know about. For most people, they're not seeing it, but there are a couple people that are still seeing some performance issues in some areas. Just so you guys know, we track everything. So we do know and can see when there are performance issues. So we're still looking at those, a number of different things. And to be honest, it's just from us growing. So we're growing at a pretty decent pace. And with that, the things you do when it's small versus when it's larger and continues to grow are just different. So technology changes and we have to just adjust as we go. So those things that we could do early on would be expensive, but as there's more customers in there, then it becomes more cost effective to do. So so we're doing those now. So we're getting there. But yeah, I think the last thing. Do you have anything on that, Derek?
no, just
All right.
yeah, you guys should see that the events load a lot quicker. And if you need events for a bigger date range, that shouldn't take as long to return. But yeah, kind of like Jason said, it's as a SaaS company that's growing, performance is it's never something that's done. It's always a work in progress. So we're doing our best to just keep up with the demand, make performance better, just all around. But contact activity was one of those areas that since there's so much going on with each of your contacts, we really want to focus on that and get that resolved. But yeah,
Um,
constant work in progress.
just one of those challenges. I mean, I know a lot of companies. I used to work out in Silicon Valley. A lot of companies out there, they just throw money at the problem and add additional resources, but over time, in the beginning, that's easy because you don't have many resources you're using, so you can just add a bunch to it. But when you don't fix the problem and you just keep adding resources as your company gets bigger, well, then your margins go down. You have to increase prices, and it's a never-ending thing. So it's kind of a hit. It's really difficult to do what we're doing, but it's definitely a better option just because as we do it, these performance fixes we do are continuing to keep our resources at the same level. It's just doing things smarter, changing how we do it. There's just different ways of doing the same thing. And so we're kind of doing that. That way we can continue in the long term to keep our prices as low as possible. So it's just one of those challenges, and we greatly appreciate everybody being patient as performance issues arise. But there hasn't been too many. I think we're harboring on it maybe too much. But anyway, the only other thing we did is some just spam and bounce detection. We've just improved that a little bit. So there's been some bounces that we see getting flagged as soft bounce instead of hard bounce, and just various things. And so we've been working on that and categorizing bounces a little bit better. So especially for your undeliverables, because we automatically clean your list. So based on your bounce counts, we'll clean your list after people have bounced. I think the default for an account is 3 soft bounces. That's 3 soft bounces in a row. If you get 1 soft bounce and it delivered, and then 2 soft bounces, well, it only counts as 2 because it's only the number of consecutive bounces you get. But once you reach that limit, which you can adjust in your account settings, then we mark them as undeliverable. So we just pushed some changes to that, and it made it a million times easier for us to add additional pattern matching rules and whatnot. So it's just a lot easier for us to manage at this point. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been working on. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but man, just really, really busy.
Yep.
So
yeah, and on that deliverability, just one thing to note too is kind of like performance deliverability is something that we manage on an ongoing basis, just because it's good one day and then bad the next day and then good the next. It's just, it fluctuates so much. So deliverability is something that we're constantly working on. We're getting a lot better at identifying if there's bad emails going out versus good emails, and just stopping any bad emails from going out. Because unfortunately, as a SaaS product, you will get people that sign up and try to misuse the tool. We're just getting a lot better at identifying and preventing those people from signing up and sending out email through our system, which results in just protecting our IPs better and giving you guys better deliverability. And again, this might be TMI. We're being very transparent here, but it's just because we want you guys to know that we're working and doing our best to give you guys the best deliverability possible. We're not just sitting here and just letting bad deliverability happen or just not caring about it. We're actively looking at every day and making our tool better to make sure our IPs are as protected as possible, just to make sure you guys get that deliverability.
Yeah, those spammers are definitely creative in what they do, but we're finding all the different ways that they're trying to use and abuse the system, and that's one of the things. We have the trial plan for 14 days, but we really like to have paid plans to help address that, so you don't just sign up, start sending spam, and then go. And we also want to avoid at all possible costs doing what a lot of our other competitors do, where they just they see account with a problem, they just disable the account. They won't talk to you. They won't do anything. We're trying to avoid that. So we're doing the best that we can at detecting these things and making sure that we accommodate all of you guys out there without just disabling your account. So we're getting there. We're doing pretty well so far.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you guys send to people that gave you consent, then you're all good. So
yeah,
that's all. That's all
no
we ask.
List. No screen scraping, no scraping the web, finding email addresses on Reddit and websites and whatnot. Don't do that. So anyway, if you didn't know how to do it, I guess he gave you some insight into that, but not any more insight than GPT or any of these other systems could tell you anyway. So all right, let's get on to the blog. So this is it's a good blog. I mean, we use this exact series or the same sort of thing. But it's how to build a welcome series that converts. So, we use our system heavily for our own sake. So just like you guys buy our platform so you can use it for your business, well, we use it for our business as well. So when you sign up for a trial, the emails that you get all are running through our automation. That's that welcome series or an onboarding series or whatever you want to call that, to not only introduce people to your company and the services and products that you offer, but give them tidbits of information that help them be more successful when they start using your product or service. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of that's the overall gist of it. But Derek, I guess I'll let you go through a couple of those. You can go through first couple points if you'd like. Or
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I really liked about this blog is it stressed one thing kind of throughout it, is just, well, I guess when I was writing, I really wanted to focus on one thing, is just that make sure your welcome series provides value. We've seen a lot of customers that build a welcome series that's basically just a cookie cutter. It's like, oh, we're supposed to do this, so let's do it. It's just some email saying, oh, this is our brand. Thank you for signing up. Super generic, but it doesn't really provide any value. So it's not, oh, how can you make your business better by using our product? Or how can you, basically, you just need to provide value to whoever's receiving those emails to make your welcome series be worth it. Because if there is no value, then people are just going to not be engaged. They'll see a message in their inbox, but they won't read it because they know there's no value coming from it. So yeah, I really wanted to stress throughout the blog, just make sure to provide value in your welcome series. And a welcome series can be anywhere from, I mean, in the blog, we talk about 3 to 5 emails, but it really just depends on your business. And so it depends on, in our welcome series, for example, we have around 10 emails. But that's because we have a very big product. There's a lot of education that needs to go on in our welcome series. So because of that, we have a lot of emails in our welcome series to make sure you guys know everything that's going on in the tool. But it just depends on a case-by-case basis based on what your business does. But as a general rule of thumb, 3 to 5 emails is good. And yeah, your first email, you kind of just want to introduce who you are, thank them for signing up, kind of go over what your business does, just so they have a good idea of everything your tool provides. And then from then on, it's kind of based on business by business what you want to do with your emails. But you just need to make sure to educate. You need to make sure to give value. And yeah, I mean, those are the kind of the basics for the content in your welcome series.
yeah, one of the things that we've been working on as well is called CUOs. I have no idea why we can't ever remember what that acronym means, but
Yeah.
common use objectives is what I remember it being. But basically, it's what we tried to do in our series is, we think about things from the customer's perspective. What business need do they have to use our product? And so we go over those common use scenarios or objectives. We go over common uses that they'll use. So in our system, one of the really common things that people do is import their contact list. So that's one of the things that we talk about, or setting up your sending domain, or any number of different things that people are going to do through our platform. We talk about those, but we think about everything from what's a customer going to do, not what I want them to know. It's just what is, the customer decided to come to you for a reason. They liked something on your website. They liked what you said in your webinar, like our incredibly awesome weekly ones. They made some decision. They picked your platform or your product or your service, whatever it is. So now it's what's most common that people want to know. And that's the kind of things that we hit on within our series, is those things that are just super common. Again, common use objectives. So the CUOs, make sure that you address those. I know for us, it's a big challenge because we're all we're really techie people. So because we are so techie and we talk so literal, converting over to that business side can be difficult at times. Luckily, because I deal so much on the business side, it's not quite as difficult, but I'm still a techie. So, that is something that we battle with all the time. And, but that's one thing you'll find with us. We struggle to embellish. So most sales things, they embellish quite a bit. We're really bad at that. So if it's not factual, we don't do it. But back to the blog, or to the welcome series, just make sure that you think of those common use objectives that people use your platform or your service or your product for, and address those things right up front. It really helped us to kind of nail down what we wanted to go over. And also just with the support that we've had to provide to people, that really gets us in tune with our customers a lot more. So anyway.
Yeah. And kind of leading off those CEOs, another thing the blog talks about that I think is really important is that each email should have a goal and a CTA. So each email in your series should say, we want the customer to do X when they read this email, and then in that email, that CTA should be based around that goal on whatever you want them to do.
CTA is just a call to action.
My bad. Yeah. So yeah, you want that call. You want one call to action in your email. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. Just always one CTA, or else give a customer too many options, they won't know which one to pick. But anyway, so in your welcome series, make sure each email has a goal and each email has one CTA, just to really guide your recipients to where you want them to go.
Yeah, it's like a landing page. I mean, if you have a landing page, you only want them to do one thing. Those landing pages are very focused. Well, it's kind of the same thing with your welcome series. For that particular email, what do you want them to do? That call to action could be nothing more than opening the email. So your subject line is that call to action to get them to open it. Otherwise, maybe it's clicking a link to go into your platform or go into service options or whatever it is that you have. But that call to action is just, what do you want the user to do when they read the email? What next? So not what next as far as the next email you're going to send them, but what do you want them to do with that email? So that's just something, make sure you have at least, that you have one. Sometimes you could have two, but it's really seldom that you would. If you're running webinars, then you might do more than one. Or if you're a university, you have multiple programs, depending on where they entered in, you might send more than one call to action that links out to different things. But yeah. And then within our system, all this is done with journeys. So, you have your automation, and, in our system, we call them journeys. Most platforms are called journeys. Some of them are called workflows. Some of them are called automations. But typically they're called journeys. And so with our editor, which is an extremely visual editor, you're able to create those automations with all the different steps.
Yeah. And I actually wanted to share my screen to go over kind of another point in this blog. I think that's zoomed in enough, right?
I think we're good.
Yeah. So this is just kind of a really basic welcome series, but it kind of gets into the next point of the blog, is where you want to personalize your welcome series. So your welcome series, maybe in your first email, you have let's say you're a sports store and you have different sports like skiing, mountain biking. I'm just doing all the outdoor sports, but anyways, so you have these different parts of your email that you want them to click to based on their interest. So in your email, you might say, what sport are you the most interested in? And then they'll click skiing, for example. So then in your automation, you can personalize that welcome series based on what they click. So in this, I'm just showing a basic one in Tarvent, but in here we have a journey that's set up that has two triggers. It's either they're added to the audience or they filled out a form. So one of those two. And then this is where it sends them a welcome email. So this is where you could ask them what they're interested in. And then it waits a day. And then after that day, it'll check, it'll check the links. So in here, they'll say, did they click the skiing link? Did they click the mountain biking link? Did they click the rock climbing link? I'm just giving examples. But anyway, so it'll check those links. And then you can split that based on each of those and send them an email that pertains to that link that they first clicked. And so this is really powerful because you can personalize that welcome series. So even though it's one automation, it's still personalized per person that goes through it. And then, of course, just adding on to the personalization in each of these emails, you can also put in their first name. You can put in whatever data you have in them or for them. You can put into your email content. But this is just kind of showing the basics of how you could personalize the welcome series based on their not just their data, but also their behavior. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. And as you're doing this, just make sure you test. Don't just start it and, have your first production contact go through and realize something happened when they contact you because the emails don't make sense or something. So, make sure you test everything. And then, in this report, in your journey, you can go to reports and you can go to the flow report. That's the first report you see. So like Derek's got shown here. So you've got the flow report, and that green path is the most popular path that people have gone down. Now, if that's not the most popular path, or if that's not the most desired path that you want them to go down, then you're going to need to make tweaks along the way to kind of get them to go down that right path. So provide more information, better filtering, what have you. There's a number of different things that you can do, but it's where you're going to test up front and then just make improvements over time to make sure that you're getting the absolute best results you can possibly get. And Tarvent does allow you, even on a running journey, to make changes, and all those changes take effect real time. So, or pretty close to real time. Again, that's my techie side coming out. Salesperson would say real time, but as techie guys, we know that that's not true. So, it will go really quick. So there is very little in the world that is absolutely real time. I mean, there's a lot, but yeah. I think there's a lot less than what people actually sell it as. But anyway, so make changes, adjust, and just keep doing that until you refine enough that you are constantly getting the results that you want to get. We do that. We try to do that. We're not always the best at it ourselves because, like you, we have so many other things to do. So it can be a little bit tough. But we are working on some potential fixes for that to make this a little more automated even still. So a little ways away from that, but there's some thoughts behind what we could possibly do there. So
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna wrap up with the blog. Just
Yeah.
kind of just a conclusion. Just make sure each of your emails has a goal. Each of them has a call to action, and make sure all your emails are providing value. If your welcome series is super generic, something that you could basically use with any company, you're probably doing it wrong. So you want to just make sure it's providing value. It pertains to your company. And yeah, just make sure every email has a goal, and then track those goals and test, kind of like what Jason was saying, and just make sure it's set up and working how you expect.
Yep. So, all right, under our Q&A. So I've got a few questions here today, a little more than a few, but so the first one, which Derek, I think you might be able to, well, you have that up already. So, okay, so one person asked us, how does journey contact filtering work? For example, you might want to add 2 groups of people to a flow only if they're active and only if they're not in another set of groups. But the setup process is not intuitive. That makes us sad. So it should be intuitive. So, well, we're going to continue to get better at that. But in the meantime, let's show you kind of how that works. So with that, Derek, I'll let you kind of go over that in this journey.
Yeah, so I'll just go into this contact added trigger. And just so you guys know, any of these triggers, you can add contact criteria. So I'm just going in this one for an example, but form event, for example, same deal. So just so you guys know. But anyway, so if you want to, so this question actually came from a previous YouTube video, just so you guys know. And it was on the journeys one. So that's why I'm showing it to you in journeys. But this applies for segmentation or for creating a group using criteria. It's all the same builder. So I'm showing you in journey, but this applies in segmentation and groups as well. So in here, if you go to edit criteria, then this is where you add in your rules. And so this person, they asked, you want to add the contacts that are part of 2 groups. Their status is active and they're not in some other groups. So in this case, we'd need 3 rules to create basically this group of people. So your first one would be your groups that are, so the groups that the contact is in. So in here, you'd select, I'm just going to pick these 2 for an example. So basically this rule just says if the contact is in either of these two groups, then add them into this, this trigger. So then if you want to add another rule, because I think the other part was if they're active. So then in here, you would pick status equals and then active. So at this point, it's checking these two rules. So at this point, the contact has to be in either of these two groups and has to be active. So then to address the next part, oh, were you going to say
One
something?
thing I was going to say really quick on the active, because this has come up sometimes, is that people don't understand journeys can be used for contacts that are undeliverable, have unsubscribed, any number of different statuses. So that's why in this particular case, because they're going to be sending out emails to them, in most cases, that's what journeys are used for, is for active. And so all the triggers that you're going to use are predominantly going to be only for active people. But that is something just to remember, is that journeys can have unsubscribed people go through it. So having that active filter in there, just make sure. Now, if an unsubscribed person goes through and it gets to an email, we're not going to send them an email because they're unsubscribed. They'll just skip that step and move on. But yeah, just thought I'd bring that up because that has come up in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, so I got these two rules in there, and then the last rule, or the last part of it, was that the contact can't be in other groups. There are some other groups in their question. So to do that, you'd add another rule, and then you'd pick the groups, and then for the operator, instead of contains, you do does not contain, and then you would pick the group. So I just picked this one. So just to go over all these rules again. So for the contact to be entered into the journey through this trigger, they have to be part of the 3D probe mapping or CNC routering group. They have to have the status of active, and they cannot be in the Derek only group. So if they satisfy those three rules, then they'll be able to be added into the journey through this trigger. So that's kind of how you'd set it up. And in here you have the and or. So I guess I'll just go over that so you guys understand what that is. So and obviously means that all of these rules have to be true. So the only way a contact can go in is if all these are true. If not, it skips it. Or it just means at least one of these rules has to be true. So if their status is active, but they're also in Derek only, they'd still be included because it satisfies one of these rules. So that's just kind of how the and or works. And yeah, you can get really in depth with this to build pretty advanced segments, especially with the rules and rule groups. But just for simplicity wise and for the sake of this question, I'll just show you guys this one. And then, yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want to see kind of who is going to be, let me just go this way. So if you want to see who's going to be included in your segment just before you actually do it, there's an easy way to do that within your audience. So in your audience, we have advanced search. So advanced search works just like a segment. So you can do the same thing you can do in segment, you can do in advanced search, or the same thing you can do in contact criteria, you can also do in advanced search because they're all the same thing. So in here, I could say groups, contains, and then I'll just pick these two, and then search. And then it'll return only the contacts that are in these two groups. And so you basically, if you want to see who meets those criteria or meets that criteria, then you just add those three rules into here, do the search, and then you could see what contacts meet that criteria. That's just an easy way to test your segment or your contact criteria before you actually do it.
Yeah. So long answer, but hopefully that makes sense, because I mean, segmentation, like you said, can get really complex in the ands and ors. I mean, all you have to do is read it as rule 1 and rule 2 and rule 3, or it's rule 1 or rule 2 or rule 3. So that's kind of the difference between ands and ors, but hopefully that makes sense. There are a lot of options. So when you set this up, you do have to think this through a little bit. And that's where I think sometimes it gets a little tough, because you have to kind of articulate to yourself what it is you're actually doing. It's easy to conceptually think of it, but when you have to articulate exactly what you're going to do, it can get a little difficult. So definitely understand that. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. So the next question we got is, how can I preview a campaign with contact data? So,
Yeah.
and I'll let Derek kind of get to that. I don't know if you wanted to show how that's done in here, but
Yeah.
while he's getting to that, so when you set up a campaign, you can have dynamic content or conditional content. You can have personalization. You can have a lot of different things going on at one time, and you want to see what that looks like. And we actually had a customer. I think I've talked about this in a previous webinar, but we had a customer that had about 867 versions of an email that could be sent out, depending on your grass type and your region of the country and the time of year and blah, blah, blah. There's tons of stuff. So they wanted an easy way. So we came up with a super easy way. And that's kind of what Derek's going to show you, is so you can actually see how that data merges in and what that final email will look like without actually sending the email.
Yeah. Yeah. So in this email, I just pulled this up as an example. So this part right here is personalized. And then we also have in the footer, we have personalization here to include the contact email address. So if you want to see how this personalization works, you just go into the preview. So click this eye icon up here. And then in here is kind of where you set up this live preview. So in this case, I'm going to use a sample contact from the audience. And this list of contacts comes from your campaign recipients. So if you're sending to just a specific group, then only the contacts in that group will show up as options to preview the campaign. So anyways, so I have this Dave at Tarvent.com. So if I update the preview, so then this is where you can see where the personalization takes effect. So instead of Dear Customer, because customer is the default, now it's Dear Dave, because that's his first name. And then the email was replaced in the footer. So it's Dave at Tarvent.com. So this is an easy way to use the context data to kind of view that personalization within your content. And this works for dynamic content as well. So let's say this text, you only wanted to show it to people whose first name is Dave. Then it would show for Dave. But if you go to another contact, Jacob, and you update it, then it wouldn't show it for that person. So it works for the conditional content or dynamic content. It works for both of those, and it works for the merge tags. And then, yeah, we have another feature that's nice if you want to just do custom data. So instead of using a context data, you can specify the data you want to use. And then I'll just put this here. So then I can update the preview, and now it just takes from the custom data. So this is super useful, like kind of like what Jason was saying. If you have a bunch of different variations of content that you want to test, then this is super helpful, because you can kind of just go through all the different scenarios that meet the conditions for your conditional content, and then just test it right within here. Instead of having to send a test email to all those different scenarios, you can just do it right within the preview.
Yeah, this feature we didn't have back when we had that customer using the system. So this feature would have been super nice. Instead, what they did is just set up a test list that had a whole bunch of different variations with test contacts, and then they sent an email to themselves that had all those variations, so they could spot check things. So yeah, this makes life a whole lot easier without having to send out emails and see what's going on. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If not, let us know in the comments, and we can go into a little bit further. Next question. So let's see. This is a good question. Why does the unsubscribe button not work in test emails? And I would say I'll take the blame on this one. So when we were first coding the system, we had that in there, and you could send out a test email and it would work. You could click the unsubscribe and that would work. And there was the problem. We didn't want that to unsubscribe you from the system, to actively unsubscribe you. So we just, as a kind of a quick way, we just made it so that link doesn't work. So we're going to make that user experience a little bit better. So when you click on it, it'll actually go to the unsubscribe, but then let you know that this is a test, so it's not going to actually unsubscribe you. So we're going to make it a little bit better. That way it'll be more intuitive on what it's actually doing. But that's why it doesn't work in a test, is because we didn't want it to actually unsubscribe you. So we just, I guess that's where we took the quick way out to get that done, so we can move on to other things. But hopefully that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's not the best of answers, but it's an honest answer. And so we'll continue to make it better. But let's see.
Yeah.
So the
Just
next question. Oh, do you have something
Yeah,
on that?
I was just gonna add on to that yeah, it's pretty, so the unsubscribe link won't work, and also sign up forms won't work. So
Oh yeah.
there's certain system links that don't work, and it's partly because we didn't want the actual action to happen, but it's also because those links are generated per contact. So when we send out that email, the unsubscribe link is unique per person that receives it, because we need to know which contact to unsubscribe. But yeah, we could have done this better and made it so it does work. But yeah, so I just want to make sure it's the unsubscribe one, and also profile update forms, or uh, yeah, unsubscribe forms. Those won't work either, because those have to be unique per contact.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll again make that user experience a little bit better over time, but that's kind of how that is right now. So all right, so the next question: why can't I paste full HTML, a full HTML file into a drag and drop code element? It's a good question. It seems like that makes sense. Like you just grab your HTML, put it in, and everything's good. Problem is that your full HTML has, if you're familiar with HTML, it's going to have an HTML tag. It could have a head tag. It could have, well, it'll have your body tag in most cases, unless it's just bad HTML. But you're going to have a bunch of tags that aren't visible. They're more set up for how the container of that HTML is going to be, it's how it's going to be used to render the body of the email or the body of your HTML. So um, this again is something that we've been thinking about this recently, because this came up recently, and so you can't paste it in because you have a full HTML page that has that open and close HTML tag, and that's put inside of another page or an email that also has an HTML tag and a close HTML tag, and has all that other stuff. So you're kind of putting a page within a page, and browsers and email clients don't like that. So the best way to do it, if you're familiar with the HTML, the best way to do it for right now is just to copy inside the body tag. So you'll have a tag that just says less than bracket, and then it says body, and then greater than bracket, and then you'll have a whole bunch of code HTML markup. I guess it's not really code, but HTML markup. So you have that, and then you'll have a closed body tag, which is just that less than the slash body and then a close. So anyway, so if you want to grab the inside stuff and put it in, great, that'll work. Now, if there's some other things, I don't want to get too technical with this, but there's some other things. If you're not using inline CSS and you're referring to a CSS file, that could cause problems. So there's a number of different potential issues that could happen. But for the most part, that's the main thing, is that when you drop it in, you only want to grab the HTML that's inside the body. Now, the other thing, just as a note to everybody, is that email HTML is not like website HTML. So when you build your HTML for an email, different rules apply. There are different email clients out there that are getting better, particularly Outlook. So Outlook is getting better, but it's not quite there yet. And so a lot of the rules that are super nice, and you can do a lot of nice things in a website, you just can't do an email. The markup is just different. And so because of that, that's one of the benefits of using our drag and drop system, is that we know what those rules are, and we generate the HTML based on that. So we keep it really clean, and we generate it in a way that works well across all email clients on all different operating systems and all different device types. So if you're going to use your own HTML, that is totally fine. Just make sure you copy only what's inside the body tag, and not the full HTML page. Anything you want to add to that, Derek?
No, thank you. You
All right.
covered it all. Just make sure to
So,
test, because
yeah.
email HTML is it's annoying. There's no other way to
Yep.
put it. So it's very touchy. So yeah, just make sure to test, because email HTML is very sensitive to different email clients, and just, yeah, make sure to test. So Okay.
Yeah, if we didn't have a web page HTML to compare against, email HTML is just fine. But because
Yeah.
we have the web and all the cool things that you can do with the web, you go to email and it's like coding HTML back in the 90s. It feels like a lot of the time. So it's just a little bit on the old side. But all right. So the next question. This question kind of confused me a little bit, but that makes sense now. So I selected a group for my contacts to be imported into, but only some of the contacts were added to the group. Why? So Derek, I'll let you take this one.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason this happened most likely is because you forgot to check the update existing contacts in the import. So how the import works is we will, if you don't, I'll just go into the import to make it easier to understand. So let me just come into here. I will need to upload a file quick just to get into this.
Yeah, so while Derek's doing that, the challenge is you have insert and update happening at the same time. So you could be inserting people, but then you're also updating other people. So you kind of have to think about it in that way. We do have an insert only. So there's an insert only option that you can do. But when you do insert and update, so if you have a contact that's in your file but is already in your audience in Tarvent, then you have to think about the update for those particular contacts, and that's kind of what Derek's going to be going over.
Yeah. So I just want to put it. So on this screen is just uploading your file, and I picked a group to import into. And once you pick a group, we show this little warning that kind of goes over what we're talking about now. But yeah, this kind of just tells you if you're importing a list and there's contacts in that list that already exist in your audience, then you'll need to make sure to check the update checkbox to make sure that those contacts get updated to whatever the import is set to. So in this case, is the checkbox we're talking about is right here. So update current contacts with imported data. So what this does is that if derekj.tarvent.com exists in the audience but doesn't exist in the group that I selected, then this import will update that contact to be in that group. But if I didn't have this selected and I ran this import, then this contact would just be left as is. Since it's already in the audience, and this wasn't selected, so we'll just leave that contact and won't update anything with it. So if you do an import and some of the contacts don't get added to your group, but you had a group selected, then just make sure this checkbox is selected because then that will ensure that all the existing contacts get inserted into that group as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The only other thing with that is just if you're close to your contact limit, then if you have a limit of 10,000 and you're at 9,997 and you try to do an import or do a insert and update import, then there could be an issue there just because you're close and how the system calculates all that to make sure you don't go over. And we try to be as detailed as we can on that because the last thing we want is for you to get a surprise bill with an overage that you didn't know you were going to get. So we really want to avoid surprises, especially financial ones, at all costs. So because of that, if you're really close to your limit, you could run into issues where it's not going to update some of those contacts just because of that limit and how the system calculates that. And where it has to calculate that. So without getting into all the stuff under the covers, we'll just kind of leave it at that. So we just suggest if you're close to your limit, maybe make that file a little bit smaller. We're working on ways to make the system a little bit smarter on that. But that's one thing that's come up. It does not come up hardly ever, but because it does come up, I figured I'd at least mention it. So yeah. So that checkbox, like I was saying, insert only or insert an update, that checkbox that Derek said, that's what turns on the update. If you don't do that, it's only going to insert new and ignore anybody that we already saw was in there. So you definitely want to check that. We've thought about checking it by default, but it's just one of those. It's a tough one for us because we don't know which way. Some people want insert only. Some people want insert and update. So, that's why we just didn't default it. But Anyway, so that's that one. All right. So next question here. What's the difference between unique clicks and total clicks, and why do all my links show that they were clicked? Both those are good questions. I can answer this one pretty quick. So total versus unique. If I get your email and I click on that link 5 times, then that means that there's one unique click, which is me. I'm the unique person. And then there's a total of 5 clicks because I clicked on that link 5 different times. So that's the difference between unique and total. It's the unique number of people that clicked on that link versus the total amount of clicks across all your contacts. So again, in my case, I'm one person, so that'd be one unique. And if I clicked it 5 times, then the total is going to be 5. So now the next question, this one is kind of an annoyance to us. We are continuing to get better at it. But why do all of our links show that they were clicked? Spam bots. So spam filters, spam bots. There's just different bots that will spider things. And so we do a lot of detection on that to make sure that we don't report clicks for bots in spam filters. But in some cases, if they add a new IP or the registration information that comes back about the client, we're not able to figure out if it's a bot or not, then it'll show up as a click. So there are times, and all ESPs have this issue. It's something that we all battle with. And that's just, those spam filters are wanting to check all those links to verify that they don't have malicious data on those links and that they're good. And so a lot of times, if we can't catch them, then they'll show up as a click. But anyway, it is minimal, but it does happen from time to time. So that's another question that came up. So we got last question of the day. Derek, I'll let you take that one.
Okay. Yeah, it's how can I integrate my WordPress form with Tarvent? So we went over this last week. So let me just preface this. So integrating with WordPress can mean a lot of things. So there could be native integrations. There could be just a webhook integration, which is what I'll talk about, or there could be third-party integrations with like Zapier or Make or some other integration platform. But I'll talk about the inbound webhook because it's something we just released to kind of address this, because we had several customers in WordPress asking for a webhook that they could send data to add customers. And this is something that's it's popular in the WordPress form plugin area. Just a lot of those plugins have a webhook that you can send data to, or the option to send data to a webhook. So how you do that is you'd come into your audience and you go to settings, and in here we have this inbound webhook card. And we went over this last week. So if you want to look at last week's webinar, we did a full walkthrough on how to get your inbound webhook working and kind of demoed it so you can set it up in your own environment. But yeah, just inbound webhook is how you'd integrate a lot of WordPress forms right now with Tarvent. So you'd come in here, get your inbound webhook. If it's your first time in your audience, you'll just see a generate button here. This warning is showing up just because we already generated a webhook. So you'd click the button to generate it. It'd give you a webhook URL. You'd copy that URL and then put it into your WordPress site. And then if you want to see how the data needs to get sent over from your WordPress form, you can come into this webhook setup information dialog. And in here, you can basically simulate what the request should look like. So in here, we have what fields are going to be sent over. You can select what groups you want those contacts to be added into. You can also select which tags you want those contacts to have once they're added. And then once you set all this up, it kind of shows you what that JSON body looks like. And in your WordPress form plugin, there should be something similar to this of how that data is sent over. So then in your WordPress form plugin, you just want to match whatever we're showing in here. So you'd have email that sends over the email value, first name, last name, and so on. So again, this is just a really high level overview of how those inbound webhooks work. But in a lot of cases with your WordPress forms, you can use our inbound webhooks to send data to get those contacts into Tarvent.
Yeah. So Hopefully it's pretty straightforward. We're working on some additional integrations in WordPress that are just more native to the platform, which I just learned this weekend that apparently saying native can be offensive. I didn't realize that. So anyway, that was a new one for me. But anyway, they're just integrations built in. So in Gravity Forms, we'll have stuff built in there for Gravity Forms, WP Forms, and whatnot. We'll have some more tighter integrations with those. But for now, the webhook is a great way because it just handles for any number of different systems. And if you don't want to use our API directly, the GraphQL API, then you can use a webhook to submit all that data. So with that, we're under an hour, so that's pretty good. So I think that was our last question for the day. So with that, just want to remind everybody that we have an affiliate program. We love when people sign up for the affiliate program. You just become an extension of our team, and we are here to support you in any way, shape, and form to get you as successful as possible at selling Tarvent to your audience. And so, we've got a great affiliate program, up to 30% commission for the life of the account. So you really do you can look at this as a good revenue stream for your business. Also, we really want you to like and subscribe. We appreciate you watching us here. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn more about Tarvent, see our faces, see we are actual people. And as usual, we've got, you can email support@tarvent.com. You can also you can log in to our platform and go to support through there. Or you can go to our website and go to our webinar page and submit questions for these webinars. These webinars are meant for you, to help you. And it's not just for us to talk, even though I tend to like talking. But yeah, ask whatever questions you want. It doesn't matter what the topic is, and we will do our best to answer those questions. Like I said, like, subscribe, follow us on all the social media platforms, stay in the know of what we're doing. We're always moving, and things are changing at a very rapid pace. So our next webinar is going to be June 3rd, 10 o'clock. That's next week, Tuesday, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So not sure what time you guys are in, but hope to see you next week. And until then, have a great week.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.